height, in particular, height for men. How much does it matter? Are lifts acceptable? Is it the same, worse, or better than women wearing makeup? We're going to be reacting to a ABC kind of news segment that they did on height. Very interesting video. I've actually recorded this video twice, and I'm doing it again because I messed up. And then the first time I recorded it in my car. But just know, guys, I am willing to have my mind changed on this. I'm not necessarily steadfast. As I've told you guys in the past, not everything on this channel is me saying that I believe this no matter what, and this is really what I think. Some of this is meant to be conversative, and for me to work through some of these things as much as it is for you. Now, before we watch the video, you guys need to know a few things. One, personally, I have not had to deal with this. I'm 6'1" on a good day, and every room for my adult life that I have walked into, I am taller than a majority of the people, if not the tallest one in the room, pretty consistently. And suffice it to say, I am always used for like the tall guy stuff. Can you reach that? Can you get that for me? Stuff like that. But to make if you're a shorter guy, make you feel a little bit better and not make you think that I'm being an asshole bragging about this. My dad is 5'5", and I had firsthand experience seeing him deal with being short. He has always been a very muscular guy, but just, shorter in stature. And, he was not a guy that like owned it and made light of it. It was definitely something that affected him and was a soft spot for him. So I will definitely be giving you guys my opinion on the matter, on kind of if I was shorter. And to me, what I would consider short is anything under 5'10". Anything under 5'10", and I would say in the eyes of women, you're short, okay? Now, women in general, because they're short themselves, don't really have a good gauge of what height really is or what exactly is what. But still, if I had to guess, I would say 5'9" or under 5'10" would be getting to a point where most women would consider you short. I also think that there is such a thing as being too tall. In my experience, and this is definitely anecdotal, but the tallest guys, like the guys above 6'4", were not ever the guys that were getting the most play. In fact, there were often, and I know that there's the whole adage of watch what women do, don't listen to what they say, and I totally agree with that. I have seen what they do. Okay, I'm telling you, the guys that are over 6'4", they are kind of like a niche attraction point as well for women. Like, it's not something that all women are like, oh, I got to have a guy that's over 6'6". There definitely is a sweet spot. And I think the sweet spot is 5'11" to 6'3". I think that's the sweet spot that women, broadly speaking, find attractive, tall enough, not too tall and not too short. So let's check out this video here. If you guys are not subscribed, be sure to smash that subscribe button. At the very least, like, comment, share. Like I said, I'm open to changing my mind on this video, but let's dive into this. Look, I gotta go rewind because, as you guys know, as I said, I already recorded this, but I forgot to share the sound. So we're back at it.
Color, skin color, they need to be tall. Sorry.
Welcome to the world of short men.
Short? I mean, who wants to be short?
Practically no one. How short is short? Well, that depends on the height of the man you ask. But since the average American male is 5 feet 9 inches, we figure any man 5'6" or under qualifies. And that, according to our ads, our icons, even our mother.
Wow, they consider short. I didn't catch that the first two times I watched this, but they consider short to be 5'6" or below. I think that's wrong. I think it's anything below 5'10".
Is not enough. We live in a
Not for me, but that's what I think most women consider short.
society where taller is better, especially for men.
And you stop and think where that comes from. When we were little, and we were all little once, we looked up at our parents.
Ralph Keyes, 5'7", wrote a book about height.
We just assume anybody we're looking up to has power over us.
So happy.
Hollywood understands. Notice who Gregory Peck is surrounded with in this scene from Roman Holiday. No confusion here as to who's the leading man. As for all those actors who aren't as tall as their leading ladies, well, Hollywood knows how to fix that, too. These are reportedly Humphrey Bogart's feet during the filming of Casablanca.
The first lifts.
I'm saying it because it's true.
Experts say the real issue is eye contact, whether we're looking up to someone or down on them. You don't have to be a movie star to feel the consequences. We put Chris and Debbie, colleagues here at ABC News, in front of our camera, posing at different heights. Half the shots showed Chris as the taller of the pair.
The air's kind of thin up here.
In the other half, Debbie was taller. Then we gave the photos to students at Fairleigh Dickinson University and asked them to tell us a story about what was going on. When Chris was taller, the adjectives used to describe him were mature and respected. When Chris was shorter than Debbie, they called him submissive, childish, weak. If that's not how you want to be judged, the solution may lie inside this box.
And so I really think that this speaks to what she just said. I really think it speaks to why I believe that height is the #1 attraction point for women. And I've told you guys in the past that attraction is layered for women. It's, you know, do you meet this? Okay, #1. Okay, yes or no. And usually if it's a no for the first thing, you won't even get the chance for her to go down the 2, 3, 4. Do you meet the second thing? Okay, maybe not, but he meets the first one. That's good. Does he meet the third? He's not too bad. It's multi-layered. And I do think that height is the #1 layer because that's the thing that everything kind of flows from. And, you know, you look at previous times, being able to be protected was vitally important. And a part of being protected was the visual, the illusion of strength. And let's be honest, as she just admitted there, based off of the fucking essays that they were writing, the taller the guy was, the more respect he gained, the just off of a visual. So it is a fact that the taller you are, the more natural respect that you gain and are given, whether you've earned it or it's real or not. Because let's be honest, I mean, are there some 6'5" people who are total dweebs and dorks and weaklings? Of course. But it's still the initial response that trickles that down, and that's what it is. And in previous times, it was heavily necessary. And I think in a woman's eyes, it's like, okay, well, he is 6'2". Therefore he can protect me. Okay. If he can protect me, he can likely provide for me fairly well. Maybe not the best, but definitely not the worst. At the very least, we're going to live and survive. My offspring will be strong and tall, and they'll be able to live and survive. So that's kind of what I'm thinking how it goes. And, you know, nowadays, it is not as necessary as we live in a much more, especially in the West, we live in a much more civilized society. It's not as needed on a day-to-day basis to have somebody with a sword or you know, who reacts gallantly and saves and protects, and, you know, and where people, I mean, guys, back in the day, people would live in villages with like a castle as the stronghold, and they would all live under one roof for what would be considered a village. I mean, things are much different nowadays. Okay. So it is much more civilized. There's not the day-to-day trouble. The trouble that individuals have on a day-to-day basis are far more spiritual, emotional, and psychological than they are physical. but still you can't change something that's ingrained in somebody. Now, I don't believe in evolutionary psychology or um or evolution in general, okay? But I do believe that this is something that God instilled in women to find attractive, and it's very simple. It's because women are the fairer sex, they're the weaker sex. Therefore, they need somebody who can protect them. And they have to have things ingrained in them to look for the qualities that exhibit protection. And then also there's the offspring side of things. What is more advantageous for a woman's offspring? So
Elevator shoes discreetly add between 2 to 3 inches to your height. Simply call toll-free 1-800-290-TALL. Imagine what Napoleon could have done in a pair of these shoes.
Every day, the Richley Company mails elevator shoes, discreetly packaged in unmarked brown paper wrapping all across the country. They won't give out the names of their customers, but chances are you know some.
by the way, Napoleon was fairly tall. Well, he wasn't tall, but he wasn't short for the time period that he lived in.
They sell dress shoes, sneakers, boat shoes, hiking boots, golf shoes, all specially built to add that critical 2 to 3 inches. They even sell slippers.
We had a customer who walked out to get his newspaper barefoot, and one of his neighbors noticed that he wasn't quite as tall as he normally is. And he called up, he was very irate, and he wanted to know why we couldn't make slippers. So we've started making slippers, and we're selling a lot of them, so they're working for a lot of people.
If lifts don't boost your ego, then just try
Wow.
what we're told is typical male behavior. Lie.
A man who writes down.
So I think this speaks to kind of my thoughts on the whole. So let's just delve into, are lifts acceptable if you are a man? And I'm kind of two minds with this, because on one hand, I think if it's possible, you should try and find a woman that does like you for you and the positive qualities about you. Because at the end of the day, nobody's perfect. Everybody is going to have their weak points. But I'm also not naive, and I know that women, when it comes to preferences, are pretty severe and very, for the most part, they can be pretty harsh about it. And really, women don't get judged very much. Maybe the gold digger one, but other than that, women don't get judged the same way men do for their preferences. So, I think if you're gonna do it, you need to fully commit to it. And as that example pointed out, that this guy was doing it, and then he went outside with no shoes on, aka he didn't have his lifts, and he was exposed like that, and he was in a panic. So if you're going to do it, you have to literally make it an all-encompassing 100% of the time. You may as well be 6'2", sort of thing. Now, the one argument that you could make against doing something like that is that it is a false pretense for potentially entering into a marriage with somebody. It's a false pretense to a woman. But what I would say to that is, well, what about makeup? Is that not false pretense? What about all these women who do cosmetic surgery and lip filler and butt surgeries and stuff like that? Okay. Now, if it's a situation where it's a fairly natural woman and all she does is makeup, well, the makeup to me, those are the like for like comparison. To me, is the makeup and the lifts. I don't, it is definitely not honest, but it's understandable given how much women care about it. And two, again, women have no place to talk when they literally paint on their face. Okay. So, you'd have to cross that bridge when you get to it. And honestly, if you're going to enter into a marriage, there's a good chance that likely sooner or later she would find out how tall or not tall you are. I mean, it's once you live in a home with somebody, it's nearly impossible to wear the shoes 100% of the time, no matter what, and carry on this facade of being 2-3 inches taller than you really are. So, you'd have to cross that bridge when you get to it. But ultimately, I think that's an individual choice. If you think it's worth it, then so be it. I think it's far more advantageous to go the more natural route of improving the things that you can control, like how athletic you look, how physically in shape you are. Do you have muscles? Are you charismatic? Are you intelligent? Do you have a good job? Do people respect you? Do you have a pretty strong friend base? Now I'm not saying you need to do all of those things, because as I've talked about in a previous video, for example, like a strong friend base, if you're a man that works extremely hard at work, it is being a man is a lonely existence. Not a ton of men have huge friend bases like women do, but you definitely can control how in shape you are, how intelligent you are, and are you funny? Are you interesting? Are you intelligent? You can kind of refine those tools. Is there a kind of naturalness to those qualities? Of course, but are they tools that you can sharpen and work on? Yes. And then the other aspect, I think, is just kind of owning it. And it's kind of like somebody with a huge mole on their face, and they kind of get in on the joke and go, mole, mole, mole. And kind of, they are lighthearted. They have no issues making fun of themselves about it, because they know it's there, and they choose not to ignore it. Everybody can see it. They can see it too, and they own it. They own it. Now, that's something like my dad, he didn't do it. Like I said at the beginning of the video, it was a very soft subject for him. But those would be the main options that I see. And personally, I think I would do the working on the things that I can control, plus owning it, rather than being ashamed about it. Because if you're ashamed about it and it's a huge soft spot for you, no matter how accepting the woman is of the height thing, if you're short, they will know that they can use it against you and use it as a means to abuse or get what they want or hurt you, if it is a soft spot for you. All right, let's keep watching.
6 feet. He's not 6 feet. He's probably about 5'10". A man who writes down 5'11", he's probably about 5'9", 5'8". He's probably 5'6.5".
Andrea McGinty, who runs a
just like if you say your body count is 7, it's probably 21.
dating service in Chicago, knows all the tricks.
The only way I know that they're not lying is if they say I'm 5'11 3/4. Because then, you know what, you would lie. I would lie. I would say I'm 6 feet.
Tell me what the women's reaction is when you say you've got someone shorter.
Shorter. 2 inches? Let me think about it. 4 inches? Are you crazy? No.
We asked her to help us construct an experiment to test just how willing women are to date shorter men. And we found 3.
Women are harsh, guys. They are. Believe me, I understand. I get it, fellas. I get it, short fellas. It's easier said than done. I get it.
Brave volunteers. Stu is the shortest.
How tall are you?
I'm 5 foot and 5'5" with the afro.
Rob is 5'3". He prefers taller women.
I kind of enjoy it. I mean, I think there are some serious advantages to being having a woman who's a little bit taller.
David is getting married this fall.
She is 5 feet tall.
And you are?
I'm 5'6".
Oh, well.
Yeah, giants, right?
We recruited other men about this.
My stupid mouse keeps messing up.
Same age as David, Stu, and Rob, but taller. We asked them all to dress in jeans and a sweater, and then we did something cruel. We put them in lineups 5 at a time behind a 2-way mirror. The men couldn't see or hear what was going on in the next room. That's where we invited groups of women to look at the men and choose a date. In this case, we wanted to see if anyone would pick 5'3" Rob. When Andrea told us women like doctors, we gave him an MD. Their choice?
Andrew.
I would say Matt, I think.
No, Rob. We piled on some more assets. We said besides being a doctor, he was also a best-selling author and champion skier who just built his own ski house.
Does that affect your choices?
He's still short.
Then we gave Rob a promotion. We made him chief of staff at a prestigious hospital.
Who'd you pick him?
Andrew's probably the closest to who I'd pick. I pick Matt.
Jeffrey, the pilot.
What would it take? Now we said Rob was also a gourmet cook who loves children.
Oh, definitely. I would take him in a minute then. Height, no problem. I wouldn't, because I would think I don't want short little kids. I was thinking, like,
Well, at least someone liked Rob. But if it was this harsh for him at 5'3", what would it take to get a date for Stu at just 5 feet? First, we made him an up-and-coming actor.
no, not.
Then we said Stu had made millions by age 25.
No.
Not for me.
Nothing worked.
How come nobody picks Stu?
Wow. Even with them saying that he makes millions, already has made millions. That's why I'm telling you guys, I really do think that the height thing is the #1 main thing that women look at. Rightly or wrongly, fortunately or unfortunately, it is the thing that most women, broadly speaking, think about first, and is the thing that everything kind of stems off of.
Too short?
We asked if there was anything we could add to make Stu.
I mean, even the guy that was 5'3", they added some pretty serious job titles to, and they still went with the tall guy. And there's going to be a clip that you guys see where the tall guy is the gym
Irresistible.
teacher.
Maybe the only thing you could say is that the other 4 are...
The tall guy is the gym teacher, and the other guy is like some astrophysicist or some shit like that. And they still picked the tall guy who's the gym teacher.
murderers.
Right, or convicted murderers.
Psychotic.
Right.
Exactly. And then we would say, oh, okay, hello, Stu. I mean, and nothing bad towards him. He's got a nice smile. He's cute.
But no takers. So we replaced Stu with David to see if 5'6" made a difference. We brought in one last group of women. When they all picked this fellow, we told them he'd been unemployed for 2 years, but that our David was a chief surgeon.
I guess it would be David for me. Yeah.
2 took David right away. But Tara chose Jim, whom we'd made a high school gym teacher.
Would it change anything if I told you that David, besides being a chief surgeon, had just published a book that he was a gourmet cook, loved kids, and extremely wealthy?
Yeah, I'd switch to David real quick. I mean, let's be realistic. I'm going to bag the gym teacher now.
So what's going on here? You had to make those short guys almost like God to make them desirable.
I'm going to bag the gym teacher now.
Published a book that he was a gourmet cook, loved kids, and extremely wealthy.
Yeah, I'd switch to David real quick.
Jim, whom we'd made a high school gym teacher.
Would it change anything if I told you that David, besides being a chief surgeon, had just published a book that he was a gourmet cook, loved kids, and extremely wealthy?
Yeah, I'd switch to David real quick. I mean, let's be realistic. I'm going to bag the gym teacher now.
So what's going on here? You had to make those short guys almost like God to make them desirable, right?
We finally made him God, and that's when
Yeah,
shows.
jeez.
And this surprises
No
you?
kidding.
It obviously doesn't surprise you.
No,
Yale psychologist Les Martell is 5'5".
it goes back to caveman times. We simply judge people, particularly men, based on their height, on their size, on their physical presence.
Why is that? We asked several of the women to come back and tell us.
I feel best friends because they're very enthusiastic, caring, because they have to make up for their height.
But you have no interest in going out with someone shorter than you.
No, I'm just attracted to taller men. I'm only 5'5" myself, but I just like taller men.
I have to tell you, and it breaks my heart to tell you this, it turned out that being short
Literally all their answers are, I just am. I don't know why. I just am. And that's the thing, guys. That's on a certain level. That's why you can't like let it get you down too much. And this is why I think that I would just own it, because there's a certain aspect to this that just is. You know what I'm saying? Like it just is. Just as the
was not
sky
good.
is blue.
Does that surprise anybody?
I don't think so.
God, I got to get a new computer. Just as the sky is blue, just as, you know, it sometimes rains, just as, you know, I'm going to have to eat food tomorrow. Whatever always happens and just is, it's just a fact of life. That is what this is. And so, you know, you can choose to confront that and try and beat it. But I think in the end, no matter what, you're only going to have so much success beating it, because it is something that is so foundational, so ingrained.
Tell me what you were
That it just is what it is. You know, I
thinking while you were standing out there with the taller guys.
versus
Sure,
just
picking
kind
us.
of like flowing and living with it and choosing to live with it, and accepting it and moving
wanna look up into
forward
his eyes
in as
and we want it
positive
to be like a
manner
movie.
as possible. I think is probably the more advantageous thing. But I certainly would not like begrudge somebody who I would not begrudge somebody who is or wants to wear a lift. Okay. I understand. I do, believe me.
There's a stereotype in society that says when you find your mate, the man is bigger and the woman is smaller. You know, Tarzan, Jane, and we didn't get to speak, so.
Well, you didn't get to speak, but we spoke on your behalf.
Oh, thanks.
And we made you doctors, chief surgeons, best-selling authors. Stuart, we made you a venture capitalist who made millions by the age of 25. You were a gourmet cook. You loved children. You had ski houses that you built all by yourself. Sometimes all this worked, but most of the time, fellas,
Didn't do a darn thing.
Well, I guess that says something about people.
What does it say to you?
Maybe the average person isn't giving us the credit that we deserve.
Does it bother you?
You know what it's like to maybe hurt. I think you know what it's like to, you know, maybe to have more setbacks than taller people.
No, that's an astute observation that guy had. That average people don't get the credit that they deserve. And it's really what he meant it was average men don't get the credit that they deserve.
People.
David, you're nodding your head.
Sure.
You think that's
Yeah.
true?
Growing up, you take a lot of abuse. You know, always being the short one and getting picked on and name calling. It happens.
And we found out how very early it begins. We gave elementary school students a test asking.
Yeah, I remember hearing my dad telling me so many stories about how much he got made fun of for being short, especially, you know, it gets to a point where even if it's lighthearted and it's not like super cruel, it gets to a point where they can't help but take it in that direction because it's happened so much.
Them to match a small, medium, or large figure of a man with a series of words.
Which man is handsome? Which man is yucky?
The kids overwhelmingly picked the tall figure for strong, handsome, smart. They circled the short figure for sad, scared, and weak. More than half also picked the short figure for dumb, no friends, and yucky.
How many of you, when you grow up, want to be tall?
And there's another decision they've already made.
When you grow up and you get married, do you want your husband to be tall, medium, or short?
Tall, 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 tall.
Is this a frivolous subject?
Not at all. It is really, in my opinion, one of the last forms of discrimination that exists.
Research shows there is discrimination, and not just from dates. One study tracked graduates of a large business school. The taller men got higher salaries.
Nowadays, ABC would get in trouble for asking a general question like, when you get older and you get married to a man, they would get totally in trouble for saying something like that nowadays. But this is definitely true. The taller men earn more. Again, I can just say this anecdotally. It's it's not as pronounced as pretty girl privilege is. You know, Clay Travis always says that the only privilege that exists in America is pretty girl privilege. But there is definitely, it's not as much as that, but there is a certain level of respect and kind of natural inclination towards somebody who is tall. You know, for me, I've always been pushed towards more leading roles because of the way I carry myself, which I think short men can do as well, but because of the height. The way people talk to me, I always say I have never had any person step to me in a physical manner ever in my life. Maybe in like grade school, and that's it. And those are some of the things that we're talking about that are just kind of natural byproducts of being taller.
On average, $600 a year more per inch.
There you are.
One man who deliberately and publicly does own up to his size is Robert Reich, the United States Secretary of Labor.
I've assumed for months that I was on Bill Clinton's short list.
At 4 feet 9 inches, his height is hard to ignore.
There is a step. No, there is a step here.
Secretary Reich has needed that extra lift since childhood.
I remember my grandmother would chart on the wall how tall I was. And we got to 12, and she said, "You're going to..." And then nothing happened. And after a while, we stopped measuring.
Do you think of yourself primarily as a short man?
I have to say, honestly, I don't.
After spending an hour with him, neither do I. Secretary Reich has reached the top in a world that tries to keep short men down. He is happily...
Yeah, and this is an example of a guy who owns it. And you hear her, and this is kind of what the point of why she is talking about this guy is once she spent some time with him, she no longer thought of him that way because he owns it and he has persevered through it. Now, not every short man can be this guy. I realize that. But if you don't highlight it more than what people already highlight it as and make it more of a big deal, you might have some more success.
Married to a woman 9 inches taller.
In other words, if you get out of your own way and don't obsess about it, you know, it can be much more positive for you. So I'm just curious if this guy is a liberal or not. Secretary. But what was his name?
There is a step.
Oh, there is a step here.
Secretary Reich has needed that extra lift, $600 a year more per inch.
There you are.
One man who deliberately and publicly does own up to his size is Robert Reich, the United States Secretary of Labor.
I've assumed for months that I was on Bill Clinton's short.
Robert, is it Robert Rice? Yep, this is him. I think he is Jewish. Yeah, Democratic. He's a Democrat. Democrat, of course. Early life. Was born to a Jewish family in Scranton, Pennsylvania, the son of Mildred Freshman and Edwin Saul Reich. I don't miss, guys. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Very interesting. It was a nice change of pace to the videos. I think that this is an interesting topic. I really think the move is just to own it and find ways to improve yourself in other areas that you can control rather than your height, which you can't control. And living a life that is not, even if it's just a small aspect, no pun intended, that is not your natural life, it can be a hard thing to keep up with. You're living a double life essentially. Now, like I said, I don't begrudge a guy who does it. I understand. But you know, that's just me, and you could say that this is me being biggest of me, that I'm a tall guy, and so how could I possibly understand? But I think that this Robert Rice guy, or Reich is an example of why it's more positive or advantageous to accept it and move forward and persevere through. Because if you get to a certain place in life, it will matter less and less and less because you're at the top of the mountain. So anyways, guys, like, comment, share, subscribe. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow on facts or feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you, kings, short kings, tall kings, medium kings. Happy Easter to my fellow ortho bros out there, Orthodox homies out there. Christ is king. Don't be a pussy willow. Peace.